Welcome to the podcast. This is David Thompson. Today we're going to talk about for sale by owners and a for sale by owner system that is actually very easy to do. So what we're going to do first is just have a conversation with the for sale by owner. We're going to make this call. Ring, ring. They're going to say hi, of course. And we're going to say, hi, my name is David Thompson. I'm a real estate agent. And I was just wondering if I could ask you a quick question. And they're going to say, sure. And then you're going to say, are you the owner of the property at 123 Main Street? You're trying to sell the house yourself. Is that correct? And they say, yeah. Just one question. Are you cooperating with real estate agents? And typically they're going to say yes. And you're going to ask them what percentage they're offering. And we really don't care about this at this point, but we wanted to establish that they're working with real estate agents and say, as a professional real estate agent, I show a lot of houses and I like to stay abreast of, I like to know about all the houses for sale, not just the houses that are listed with real estate agents. Just in case I get a buyer that has an interest in a house like yours, would you mind if I take a look at your house? And generally speaking, they're going to say, yes, of course, that's very easy. We're not saying we have a buyer. We're simply going to say, as a professional real estate agent, I like to know what's available in case I do have a buyer. Would you mind if I take a look at your house? And you set up a time to go out and preview the property. Now, the only objection you're going to get at this point is the objection of, well, all the pictures are online. And then you're just simply going to say, well, as you know, I show houses every single day, and sometimes I find pictures to not be real accurate. Sometimes a house is actually better than the pictures, and sometimes it's much worse. So if you don't mind, it couldn't hurt for me to stop over and take a look at your house, could it? And of course, with that language, they're going to say yes. And either way, you're going to get an appointment for a preview. Now, I don't call this a listing appointment at this point, but the conversation that we're going to have in the house is going to actually create the listing appointment. So as we're in the house, we do our thing. We're going to build rapport by asking questions, talking to them. And at some point while we're building rapport and taking a look at the house, we're going to use this language. So may I ask you a question? They're going to say, sure. So most people who are trying to sell their house themselves has a certain amount of weeks that they have planned before they list with a professional real estate agent like myself. Now look at the language that I just used. Most people, so that's an NLP technique that most people, when we say that, somebody thinks that's what I should do. Most people have a certain amount of weeks that they plan on trying to sell it themselves before they list with a professional real estate agent like myself. Embedded command, by the way, professional real estate agent like myself. So we're going to say most people have a certain amount of weeks. And what happens is we're reframing their thoughts. Before we ask this question, they're not thinking about how many weeks. When we frame the question this way, they actually answer it. And the interesting thing is it's usually 6 weeks. Don't know why it's 6 weeks, but it usually is 6 weeks. So may I ask you a question? They say yes. And I say, well, most people have a certain amount of weeks that they plan on trying to sell it themselves before they list with a professional real estate agent like myself. How many weeks were you going to try to sell it yourself? And they say 6 weeks. And fantastic. You really have a great opportunity here. And here's what I would suggest you to do is just take some time and interview some of the top producing agents. What this does for you is you get to see what they're doing to sell the house, maybe get some tips, and at the meantime, just in case the property doesn't sell, you get to pick the real estate agent that you would want to list with in 6 weeks. I don't mind stopping out. I understand it's not for a listing, just for me sharing some information with you. I could stop out tomorrow, share what I would do to sell the house. I could give you some tips, also go over pricing with you. Couldn't hurt, right? What time tomorrow would be good for you? So it's really easy. Understand that people are not going to do anything. They're not going to set an appointment unless you provide some type of value. So here, where the value is here, it couldn't hurt, could it? I'm going to share some pricing with you. I'm going to share some strategies that might help you. And by the way, this is not for a listing. I'm just going to share some information with you. Couldn't hurt, could it? So it's fairly easy to set the appointment. So here's the first thing I want you to think about. You may even want to write this down because we're going to do some math calculations on this. Here's the thing. What percentage of the time are they going to say, yeah, I don't mind just stopping out tomorrow? Now, I'm going to think that number is going to be 70% or above. So we're just going to use 70%. All right. And here's the next step. I actually go out and I do my normal presentation. Whatever that presentation is, we're going to do that presentation. At the end of that presentation, with a big smile on our face, we're going to say to them, I said that we're not planning on listing the house, but obviously I'm going to ask you if you want to go ahead and have me list the property. And sometimes they're going to say yes, but that's not the purpose of what we're doing. Here is what is called a forward commitment close. And this is something we're going to close in the future. We're going to ask for a commitment for the future, and it's real easy technique to close. So we're going to say, based on everything that we talked about here, based on what we went over, would you be comfortable, just in case your house doesn't sell over the 6 weeks, that I would be your realtor at the end of 6 weeks? Would you be comfortable with that? And they're obviously going to say yes. So it's a real easy closing technique. Based on everything that we talked about here, would you be comfortable if your house didn't sell over the 6 weeks, at the end of the 6 weeks, that I would be your real estate agent? And of course, they're going to say yes. So I'm going to say another 70% right here. So just plug in 70% right here. And then what we're going to do is obviously say if you had any concerns or anything I can help you with over the 6 weeks, if you need a buyer pre-qualifying, you need a contract, just assume I'm your real estate agent. I won't go ahead and charge you for that, but I'll probably call you every week and just check in with you and see how are things going to see if I can offer any assistance. Would that be okay if I call you every week? And they say, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and do that. Week number 1. Hi, this is David Thompson calling you like I said I would. When we say calling you like I said I would, we're embedding into their thoughts that we do the things that we say we're going to do. Hi, this is David Thompson calling you like I said I would. How'd your open house go? So do you have any questions? Do you have any buyers? Last week it was 6 weeks, so that's 5 weeks from now. Did you want to move that up or did you want to stick with that plan? And they're probably going to say stick with that plan. But guess what we do the next week? We're going to make the same phone call again. And we're going to say, hi, this is David Thompson calling you like I said I would. How'd the open house go? Do you got any buyers? Any questions for me? Do you have anybody you want me to get qualified for you? Okay, well, wonderful. Well, last week it was 5 weeks, so it's 4 weeks this week. So is that still your intentions in 4 weeks, or did you want to move that up? And you can see how we're going to do this every single week throughout the process, all the way down to the last week. And often these people are going to move up that listing and they're going to say, yeah, no, actually go ahead. But if we get to the last week, it's the same phone call. Hi, this is David Thompson calling you like I said I would. Last week it was 1 week, so this week on Friday is when we're planning on putting the house on the market. Is that still your intentions? And then they'll say yes, and you're going to go ahead and list that house. I'm going to grab my calculator here and I'm going to do the calculations for us. So is it possible you could set up 1 preview appointment a day? Of course it is. Right? So you're going to have 5 preview appointments times 50 weeks. So you're going to have 250 preview appointments. Now we said what percentage of the time are they going to turn into an actual listing appointment? We said 70% of the time they would say yes. There's no harm in meeting. It's 175 listing appointments is what that turns into. And now whether we're in the house, we're going to do that forward commitment close. We're going to do that presentation, and that forward commitment close, we're going to say to them, based on everything that we talked about today, would you feel comfortable with me if your house didn't sell in 6 weeks that I could be your real estate agent? And we're going to figure that 70% of the time they're going to say yes to that. So let's just look at that times 0.7. That's 122 listings that you're going to get from this. And we know that it's about 82% of the time that a for sale by owner lists a property that they end up selling to 1 degree with a real estate agent. So I'm just going to take that number and I'm going to point it by 82, and guess what? That comes to 100 sales. So if you did this technique and you went out to a preview appointment every single day, and then you set up the listing presentation, and then you did the listing presentation and got your forward commitment close, and then you followed up every single week based on how many weeks they said they're going to try to sell it themselves, it looks to me like you'd sell 100 for sale by owners. What an easy system to put in place for sale by owners. Thanks for listening. This is David Thompson, David Thompson 360 Podcast.